And welcome to our new series of You've Got This Equestrian. So if you don't know where this all started, scroll back a few videos and check out my story and where this all began. But we're normalising having confidence slips as an equestrian, and that life isn't, as social media will have us believe, all perfect, and that everybody has their off days, their off weeks, their off months, and that it's okay. And so I'm really excited that in this video we have got Winnie with us, who is going to be chatting to us about her story and sharing a little bit about her. She's also got an amazing Instagram handle, which I'm going to get her to share with you, and she is one of our brand ambassadors and just all round awesome and inspiring. So share a little bit about you. Tell everybody a little bit about you.
Okay, so my name's Winnie, known on Instagram is Winnie By Wheels, and I am a 23-year-old para equestrian who's graded as grade 1 para dressage for the RDA, and that was last year, during kind of in between lockdowns I was officially graded. But yeah, I've been riding on and off since the age of 6, and I have cerebral palsy and fibromyalgia, and I am a full-time wheelchair user.
Wow. And yet you still managed to ride and inspire everybody on your post. So when did you start riding?
Okay, so funny story. When I was 6, I would be scared of anything with a pulse. So dogs were a no-no. Horses were certainly a no-no because they were big, scary, fluffy animals. And it was because I didn't want to do my physiotherapy that it was suggested that I get in contact with an RDA. So my mum called the person that taught her to ride, who runs Wintford and Claverham RDA, and that is where it all started. However, I would go there and I would cry every time I had to get on, and it was very much of a come on, you can do it, get on, you'll be fine once you get on. And I would cry, I'd scream, but basically everything you shouldn't do around a horse, but I didn't know that at the time. And yeah, I ended up getting on, and I'd say it took me about a year to stop the whole kind of crying thing, but I eventually fell in love with it and rode since then. And I represented that group twice in front of Princess Anne at Gatcombe Park for the RDA ridden display, and I also we also did a lot of different activities where, for example, we did a ridden video to the Wurzels, and we all had like neckerchiefs, but me and the leader at the time, my helper at the time, we decided to go one step further, and I'll always remember this, and I always mention it with a smile. Instead of wearing it around our necks the right way, we twisted it the other way and pulled it up, and we were going around saying we were bandits. So I went from being absolutely terrified of absolutely everything, and I was still wary around horses, of course, and then I got more confident. I worked with some amazing instructors who would motivate me and stuff like that, and they kind of knew how far they could push me, and I ended up trotting over cross poles and jumping. And then later on in life I had to stop because of school because it was a Thursday afternoon, and then I did bits and bobs of riding here and there at different places. And then ultimately, when I was about 16, I ended up back at Claverham and Wintford, and that is where I had my first canter, and they gave me my work experience. And it wasn't until I was about 19 years old I really wanted to think about competing. So I then went to the Avon group and worked with them in dressage, doing para dressage. I've had the opportunity of being taught by Clive Milkins, who is the Canada para equestrian team, and he's worked with the likes of Sophie Christiansen. And then I now ride in both those places. I am the centre ambassador for Avon, and I ride still at Whitford and Claverham with the same person that taught me all those years ago. So I've only recently started coming back, but it's still that learning thing of they still know me from back then and they know how far they can take me, and because of them they have really helped shape me to be the equestrian that I am today, both centres.
What a journey! You've done so much and achieved so much. That's amazing. And you started riding quite young as well, and you've just managed to carry it on, whereas a lot of people who start riding quite young end up having quite big breaks. You've sort of kept your hand in all the way through.
It was one of those, it was one of those hobbies, I suppose, where it was almost like I tried various different things, but I always ended up gravitating back. And when I came back the first time to Winford and Claverham when I was about 15, 16, my mum rang up and straight away, Mrs. Lewis, who is the owner of the group, she's been running the group for over 40 years. They've celebrated 40 years. And straight away, "You're Winnie's mum," when my mum rang up. And I was just like, wow. And nothing had kind of changed. I got in there and I started riding again, and it was right. This is where we left off, so to speak. Now we're going to continue from then. So I could have had a break of, I think the break I had was about 4 or 5 years before I ended up going back, and we literally picked off where we left off. So
having somebody who knows you and understands you like that makes all the difference when it comes to having a good instructor.
Yeah, definitely.
So tell us a little bit about your confidence journey, because your confidence journey has been like every equestrian's and been very up and down. So share a little bit.
Okay, so I have, throughout my equestrian life and my personal life, with my health conditions, my confidence has always been something that has been a bit rocky. I wouldn't say I'm the most confident person in the world, but that has definitely improved over time, especially representing the Avon Centre and being a brand ambassador for yourself. That has helped me kind of open up a bit more. When I was little, when I got over the initial kind of I was very scared of the world, but I was still very much so the kind of robust, not really having a care in the world. Yeah, there was still a little bit there, but I would just chuck myself into things. And then that kind of all stopped when I was 11, 12, where I had an operation that didn't quite go to plan. And that put me in a very, very, very dark place. I ended up spending 3 weeks in hospital, which then impacted me further on in my education, and that took me to not necessarily a dark place, but it was definitely a challenge having to relearn lots of different things, because my life went from one extreme to the next. I was told that the operation that I needed to have, I essentially needed it to be able to keep certain aspects of my mobility. And while that did happen, it wasn't to the degree that was desired, and I ended up having other side effects as a result of it. Now, from that, I was very not confident for a while. But I was lucky enough to have such an amazing surgeon, physiotherapist, all these different medical teams. So the person that made my splints, I can't think what, orthotist, that's what they're called, and they basically took me from being really, really low to basically building me up. So as long as they were physically building me up with the strength in my legs, they were building me up in my head as well, and they made me believe I could take on the world. And for the most part, I could. So it went from me. They said that I would probably never walk without aids again, so my crutches. And yeah, I wasn't able to walk that far, but I ended up getting strong enough that I could walk without crutches. And yeah, that was, and the effects of the operation still do affect me now. I've always kind of got that going on in the background, and I try and not let it affect me, but sometimes it does really become overpowering. So that kind of aspect happens, but that's where the riding came in. The riding helped me get stronger. Riding, you don't really think about it, but it is physiotherapy. So win-win. Don't actually think you're doing any hard work when actually you are. And then I found secondary school really difficult. I went to a mainstream school, and I had some really, really great friends. And I mean, I'm friends with some of them now still. I had some really great friends, but I, for some reason, had a bit of a breakdown in my mental health, and I was very withdrawn and upset, and therefore I separated myself from that group. And that kind of carried on all throughout my GCSEs. I didn't know what support I needed, and it had to be kind of devised a lot more quicker. So I managed to do my GCSEs, and I ended up getting really good grades with the help of a scribe and a single invigilator. So I had someone write for me, and that was kind of the next chapter. I then ended up doing 1 year of sixth form, but I didn't find that very useful. So I thought, you know what, I'm going to go and do horses at college, because that's the only thing that made me happy. Now, I felt going into that, I was really quite worried. I think so I left school at like 17. So 17 to 19, I was at college. Now, through that, I have met the most amazing people. I've had the opportunity of learning so many things. And that made me a lot more confident. When I started, I very nearly didn't continue because I didn't feel as though I was worthy enough, because I thought, oh, like everyone here's got horses, or they've been like and done proper horsey stuff. And yet I was just focused on the fact that I thought that I was just this girl who didn't know anything, didn't do kind of, I wasn't a big competitor. I wasn't like, I didn't have experience, and I that really frightened me. But my LSA, Time Verity, she worked with me one-on-one, and she, along with my tutors and all these other people that supported me, all the girls on the course, they actually helped me. In the end, I ended up coming back with a triple distinction star.
Wow.
So I went from not really knowing a lot to learning a fair bit. Whether I can still recall some of it, I don't know. But that time in my life, it was very up and down, because there were aspects that I couldn't reach in the course, so I couldn't actually ride on the course. I wasn't able to complete different things, but they substituted that with nutrition. So I worked with Jean, who taught me all about horse nutrition, and I found that really interesting. But I also got the ability to, I got to spend time with the exotic animals. So I used to do bits and bobs with the exotic animals as well. So I found that really good. And then coming out of college and entering the real world was where it hit. And I took a really big dive because I couldn't find a job. I couldn't do find anything. And at that time, I was starting to want to grow more as an equestrian. I wanted to do the competition. I wanted to do all this. And then I gave up momentarily for a few months. Well, I literally just got off the horse one day and burst into tears, and I said, I'm not going back. And my mum rang the place in tears. They could hear me in the background. They said, that's fine, give her a few weeks and we'll see. And nothing changed. And then they got into contact with me again, and they were like, right, we want to try something, because they asked me what the problem was, and I said, I don't know, it hurts too much. And they said, okay. So what they did was they brought me in and let me try different horses to ride. And I had to learn how to trust people, well, not necessarily trust people, but have some of these horses, although I'd seen them, I'd never seen them being ridden in lessons or stuff like that. And it was kind of like I had to put my trust in these people, and I ended up falling in love with a little cob called Jim, who I rode for about 2 years. And I was fairly confident. I did my first dressage competition on him ever and came third. And then I progressed on to Cam, who was a roan pony, and sat and worked with him for about a year, and then lockdown hit. And now I think lockdown for everyone has been a time of reflection, definitely a time of kind of turbulent mental health and everything. And both RDAs, so Avon and Wynford and Claverham, Wynford and Claverham closed their doors indefinitely. And the Avon Centre obviously had to close because of COVID. So there wasn't a lot of funding going in, and I became so withdrawn because I wasn't seeing my friends that I'd made. I wasn't being seen by my instructors, who literally every day, every time I went to see them, I'd be happy. Although I wouldn't be happy when I got there sometimes, I'd always come back with a smile. And I was just really, really struggling. And I was worrying about, what if they never open? Not only does that impact me, that impacts my fellow riders, and that impacts the physical and the mental health of all of us. Now, in hindsight, the worrying about that definitely made everything else going on in the world a lot more scary for me. I had great things going on in my personal life, so I'd started a new job, all these different things, but I felt like I couldn't really appreciate that because I didn't feel like as though I could. I don't know how you would say it, but I didn't feel as though I could be my full self, because that part of me, that part of my life wasn't operating, and therefore I wasn't a person as a whole. So that kind of hit, and then I had a message from Emma, my mentor, who wasn't my mentor at the time, but she is now, to say, would you like to come and meet some Shetlands. And I said, okay. And she said, I want you to be a part of something. I was like, okay. So went and drove up to Avon, and I was really, really nervous because this was the first time I'd been around horses in so long, but it was that kind of, I'm really excited, but I'm also really scared. And I was greeted with the beginnings of Beyond the Gate equine assisted activities, which was
are the cutest Shetlands. You can find them on Instagram. They are so sweet.
Beyond the Gate is an equine assisted activities or company that was founded by Emma, and it all kind of became around COVID because lots of people are scared to return to the big horses, but also we wanted to focus on mental health and stuff like that. And I saw these Shetlands, and I did a blog post about it actually, my first meeting, and my heart just went absolutely huge. And then ever since then, Emma hasn't been able to get rid of me. The Shetlands haven't been able to get rid of me, and I've been working with them ever since. And while I think riding is even more important, well, there isn't an importance level. Of course, riding's important, but I believe that being able to access with the Shetlands and being on the ground with the horses and learning their body language, you learning from them learning from you, because they'd never seen my wheelchair before, so that was a learning experience for them. And they see a whole host of different people and they impact them in different ways. And what I've noticed, the important work that like RDA and equine assisted activities do as a whole is you might not be able to change the world, but you can change someone's world. And that has been kind of the most profound thing I've witnessed. And I'd never really thought about it before, but back last year, my mental health did take a massive tumble because I had an opportunity to loan a horse called Maggie, and that horse, I didn't even last a week with loaning, purely because I couldn't accept and I couldn't cope with the fact that I wasn't able to do everything. And it was my mum that was having to do the kind of the poo picking, all of that malarkey, and having to tack up and stuff like that. Now, my mum did used to ride when she was younger, but she hasn't really, and she used to have her own horse when she was younger, but obviously times have changed, and it wasn't really fair on my mum to go out in the field and have me on the phone telling her what to do. Now, after that was literally about 3 days before Christmas. The entire Christmas period was spent crying, feeling like an absolute failure, not wanting to ride again. In fact, I messaged Emma and said, I'm done with riding, but I really want to stay with you in the Shetlands. And they were like, oh, don't do anything in haste, don't do anything in haste. I think everyone said that. And then Mrs. Lewis said to me, she said, it was the winter, it was the wrong time. We can always revisit in the future if you want to, but right now, just take this as a learning experience and build from that. That's the only thing you can do. If you feel you've hit rock bottom, you can only work your way up. And in the new year, I went back riding both centres, and I cried initially, not wanting to ride. I got myself so worked up with anxiousness that I physically just froze, and I ended up getting on, and I was riding the centre manager's horse, Brian, who is a Dales pony and is ridden bitless. So that was my New Year's challenge, was I was going to master riding bitless. I then started riding Cookie at Wimpford and Clavering, and I was a part of a group lesson, and I've just been building blocks from there, and I will be taking Cookie to compete next week. And if it wasn't for Pip and Mrs. Lewis, well, I probably would not have this driving force behind me, and like all the people in both RDAs are really, really supportive, really, really lovely. I've had great instructors. I've had Karen and Alison, who have absolutely revolutionized the way I see riding. And then I've got Pip and Mrs. Lewis, who have known me ever since I was little, and they continue to, well, everyone continues to kind of boost me. They know where my brain ends and how far they can push me, which Alison and Karen did learn and are learning very quickly to do. But unfortunately, because because Pip and Mrs. Lewis have known me since I was little, they know where what quirks I've got and everything else. So I know that I'm not ever going to be the most outgoing, confident person in the world. Like, before I actually found a job, I wasn't actually able to do any kind of speaking. I wouldn't have been able to have approached Red Bear Equestrian. I wouldn't have been able to speak. And it's through the back of that, and through meeting so many amazing people through the RDA, through riding, that they've given me the courage to do it. So there's a lot of like camaraderie, would that be the word? Like, everyone that I have come into contact with in riding have always given me kind of the boost I needed, from whether it be from when I was little to getting onto the horse initially and actually starting to enjoy it, to going and learning about horses at college. They gave me the boost that I could actually know what to do. And I got all those amazing grades. I met my best friend, who has been by my side through thick and thin ever since. And now I've met friends through competing, and growing up I never really had any friends who were disabled. I had one friend who was disabled, and we were always put together in school, and she was the only kind of person I knew. And then as I got into RDA, I met more people. I met people with different conditions, and my first job was for a disability equality forum, so I got to meet new people through that, got to learn things through that. And although I'm not the most confident person in the world, I've definitely grown, and I can register that in my head. I'm not the same person I was at the start of lockdown. I wasn't the same person I was when I started looking for work. And confidence and growth is something that can't be measured. It can only be something that can be felt. So yes, there may be dips in confidence, and I do get that quite a lot. And I find the need that I need to be reassured quite a lot. I don't have a lot of confidence in my own judgment, but I know that if someone says to me, like, "Oh, you're doing great," that will correspond. And although I might not believe it, I might start believing it slowly. But that's
just that
thing
of people telling you stuff, isn't it? And starting to believe it, that change is. And I think COVID hit with so many people's confidence, because a lot of people, like yourself, if you don't have horses at home, you couldn't ride. You know, we've got our own horses, but they're not at home. And we had a month where we couldn't ride. And we certainly felt it when we went back to it, that we'd had a month off, they'd had a month off. It's that unknown of going back after all that time.
It's COVID, I think, has been one of those things where it's been obviously so much tragedy, so much heartbreak, but it has had silver linings. So I've been able to meet you, and I've been able to be a part of Red Bear Equestrian and the community, like my fellow ambassadors for Red Bear Equestrian. They are so knowledgeable and kind, and it's been a time where I think there's been small successes, whether it might not necessarily be with horses, it might be something else. So like I've been able to branch out and meet different people, albeit online, but I've got friends in the Jersey Islands, I've got friends in Barnsley, I've got friends in Oxford, and they all continue to. It doesn't I think that's why COVID has been one of those things where I think everyone's kind of, for the most part, bonded together.
Yeah.
So it's kind of, you can't see people and you can't ride, but you can still. I mean, I've been writing letters to people. I've been receiving letters from people, and it's been nice in that way. And like, I'll say to like my mum, I'll be like, she'll be like, oh, who's been writing to you now? And I'll be like, oh, it's Coach India, and it's those people that have been the ones to check in on me, and I've checked in on them, and it's been, yes, my creativity and my like blog writing has been something that's been quite put on the back burner because I haven't had a lot to write about. However, my Instagram kind of documented all my different things. So I initially started Winnie By Wheels after when I first started my job at the Disability Equality Forum, and I started picking up more things and learning from them. So I just wanted to talk about my life, and I met all these great people, and I just wanted to be able to put my life the way I see it online. I want people to be able to look at what I've done and either be able to share in my excitement or my upset, or just, I learned so much from social media and the people on it. And I just think I've learned so much from people. People might learn stuff from me. And I mean, yeah, I'm not the most eloquent person and stuff like that, but it's a way for me to vent, and it's a way for me to connect with people, and it's a way for me to help myself and potentially help other people.
And inspire other people as well. Your content's brilliant, and just, you know, you've been so honest sharing your journey today, and the fact that actually everybody has ups and downs, and equestrian life isn't as amazing as some Instagram profiles would have us believe. You know, and everybody has their highs and lows, and I love the fact that you document that through your Instagram, and that people can actually see a real journey of a real rider and the normal ups and downs, and how little bits can just hit you when you least expect it, and then you have a bit of a bump in the road and then you go back to it. And I adore the fact that you're doing a dressage this weekend, because I'm so excited to see you document that next.
I've become so much more confident like throughout my experience that I walked into my local tack shop with pair of loop reins that I've been borrowing from my friend Kat, and I went, can you please replicate these for me? And I handed them to them, and I was like, I wouldn't be able to do that like 5 months ago. And I've actually ended up, my local tack shop are amazing. They've recently fitted me with a new hat. They've helped me on my quest to find long riding boots, and they're just amazing. And I'm finding out that through becoming more confident, I'm visiting more places and stuff like that. And I'm definitely a lot more optimistic for the future. Whether that's for the better or for the worse, I don't know. But I don't want to say things that, I don't want to jinx anything. But I'm hoping that in the future, me and my friend have put our heads together, and we might. I don't want to say for definite, but we've definitely got ambitions together. Whether we end up creating our own business, we don't know, and I don't know how to do that. But it's not a nice idea to have in practice. But
maybe there's an exclusive we've just heard as well.
yeah, it's probably not going to happen. But we've both decided that we're going to, alongside our jobs, we're going to volunteer with the Shetlands up at Avon, beyond with Emirates Beyond the Gate. But we've also, because my friend did her master's degree in equine behaviour, so I kind of just went to her, I messaged her, I said, do you want to go into business together? And she said, really? And she said, doing what? And I said, don't know, but it could be horsey. We both love horses. So although we don't have any plans in stone, we've got that kind of that dream to hold on to. And I just hope I don't become disillusioned with it and I actually do start to pick up the pace. And
Amazing. I'm sure you will.
I don't know what we'll do, but we can have a brainstorm one day. But
it's an exciting journey trying to figure out what and how, and the fact that horses are just included in it's amazing. Yeah.
I mean, I'm trying to persuade my stepdad to let me get a Shetland in the garden, but that hasn't quite worked yet. He doesn't quite see the benefits like I do. Well, he does. He knows how much horses mean to me, but to have one right in the back garden,
that's it. Very close to home then.
Yeah. But
be your one top tip for anybody who is watching, listening to this? What is your one top tip that you could give them when it comes to equestrian confidence?
I would say your head and your heart will sometimes fight, but just stick with what you know and let it kind of progress from there. If in your head and in your heart, so in your heart you want to do it, but your brain's telling you no, just keep going until they both agree. So obviously don't shut the door on any opportunity. Don't shut the door completely because you don't know how you might feel in the future, but just take it step by step, minute by minute, or however you deal with things. So, for example, a thing that I've done is if I'm particularly struggling with my mental health, I will put on a music playlist and I take it song by song. So if, like, for example, I was really, really struggling with my health, I would kind of say, right, I've got my headphones in, I'll listen to 2 songs and then I'll try and get out of bed. And do things like that. Do everything the way that you want to do. So let yourself be in charge of your desires and your dreams. But remember that you can always have a change of heart. So don't ever kind of lock it away forever. Because I've said for a million times that I'm going to give up riding and I never quite do. So
just no, absolutely. And you're still here inspiring us all because you kept going.
Yeah. So you might want to give up. You might just need a break.
Yeah.
I mean, we all experience burnout. So, and it's nothing to be ashamed of. Just listen to your heart. And if you've got a good support system around you, use it. Ask for their opinions. If you feel brave enough, just like even reaching out on social media to someone. Yes, they might not get back to you, but you've got it written down, and having it written in front of you might help you be clearer in what you're thinking. Writing's a great tool, and
absolutely.
You don't necessarily have to write. You could just, if you're okay with like filming yourself, just film yourself talking and listen back. Because if you listen to yourself, you could hear back to yourself. You can hear something that you might not have heard before. So yeah.
Amazing, thank you. That's really, really helpful, and I have absolutely loved hearing more about your story. I already knew some, but I didn't know as much as I have learned today.
For rambling on as long as I have.
No, it's fine. It's really interesting, and it's great just to be able to share with everybody that, you know, like I said, confidence is a journey, and it goes up and down, and you can have one day where you feel on top of the world and then another day where you feel like completely giving up on why ride anymore. So I love the fact you were able to share that. So thank you so much for joining us. There are loads more videos in this series, so feel free to take a scroll through and check them out. I am going to tag Winnie in the comment section so you can go and check out her awesome Instagram as well. But thank you so much, Winnie, for joining us today.
Thank you for having me, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to tell my story.
All right, see you later.
See you later.